Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another StarCraft II replay analysis. In today's video, we are going to be covering a Terran versus Zerg Terran. Today's replay analysis is going to be catered to Terran players, and I'm going to be showcasing a bit of a unique style of play that, frankly, nobody else uses. I think it should be used more often. But I don't see anybody doing it, so I thought this would be a very good replay to showcase for today's video. So let's go ahead and get into it here. So, like I like to, I think it's important at the beginning of these videos to kind of just go through the thought process here. I know that I'm playing against TZ, and I know that my opponents know that it is Terran random, so they don't know what race I've spawned as, right? So a lot of times what you will see in this matchup, or I should say when you're playing solo queue and you get into this particular composition where it's two Terran, a lot of times your teammate, he's just kind of gonna play his own style, right? But if you want to know the proper way to play this matchup, or when you spawn into this composition, one player should be playing bio and the other player should be playing mech. And the reason for this is just because it synergizes really well, and it makes the game a lot more versatile and difficult for your opponent to, put together compositions to deal with it, right? So most of the time, what I'll do is I'll just open with a pressure build like this. And it's not, it's actually more of me trying to tell my teammate that I'm going to be moving into a bio composition. And if he's good, then he should know that that's what that means, right? So things kind of take a wonky turn in this game, and it's kind of a cool way that I play, where you can adapt to, like a way that you can adapt to your teammates' style of play, right? So again, like I mentioned earlier, you want to be playing bio and mech, right? But you also don't want to be playing two bio, because it's just way too easy to counter that type of a composition. Whereas if you play mech and bio, it's much harder, right? Because you got a lot of siege tanks, you got a lot of mech, Ling Bane's not so good against that, etc., etc., right? So I open with the 3 racks for pressure, and I go with my teammate on the right side of the map, because you can just maximize the pressure by having the 2 Reapers there instead of the 1 on both sides, right? So from here, it's just about controlling, picking off things, basically just making sure that the Zerg player, he doesn't just get to drone for free, right? And obviously, this build definitely has the capability of ending the game, but it's not really what it's designed to do. It's just it's a pressure build, right? So here I have some pretty poor control, some decent control, etc., etc. So I come back to my base. I'm just sort of microing around. I look at my teammate, and I see that my teammate is not going mech, right? So I put down the expansion. I peek over my teammate's base again. I see that he's not going mech. So from this point forward, I've already made the decision to transition out of this play into a mech composition. And honestly, I have never seen any player do this. You take the expansion, and then you transition out of this by going for the 2 factories. And then you build your add-ons. and you go into Cyclone Hellions. Now, you use your barracks because you're going to be transitioning into a mech composition. You want to take your barracks and you want to fly them across the map to scout. Or, you're going to have 3 Raxes, right? So what I like to do is I like to take one of them and send it across the map and scout. But then I like to take the other 2 and I like to either 1 scout in their base or 2 treat them as overlords and put them somewhere in the middle of the map that can scout attack paths, right? So in other words, you treat them as an overlord. So the reason this is okay to do is because your opponents, they have successfully deflected the Reaper play, but at the cost of their economy. So they're stabilizing their economy, and when you transition into this, it's perfectly fine because they're probably not going to be attacking anytime soon. And even if they do, well, your teammate has opened with Biotank, so you're going to have good defenses, right? So I don't really know what this push was all about. I just sort of went with my teammate, and it's fine. You're doing pressure here and there. I think it's totally fine to push across the map like this, just because you want to keep that Zerg player off of his third base as long as humanly possible. Because we've all played Terran, we've all played against Zerg, and if that drone count gets out of control, well, we all know how that looks, right? So I'm just sort of poking around here, checking for third bases. I've got my racks in his main and his natural. I can see that he's obviously just going roaches. He doesn't have second gases, or his third and his fourth gas on his natural, and so I need to kind of figure out like what is Terran going, right? Logic would suggest that he's going mech because that's just sort of what you do against 2 Terran. You play mech. You don't really want to play bio marine, but it's not always the case. So you do want to try and scout. But we have pretty good map control here. So instead of going for the additional production, I decided to go for the armories for upgrades. So like what I'm doing here with my Reapers is I'm just sort of waiting for them to push across the map so that I can send my Reapers into their main. And just kind of, because these Reapers are pretty much useless at this point, right? Like, but what you can do is you can use them to get into the mains and kill economy, right? Or they're pretty good at situations like this where your teammate makes a push, and because you can jump up cliffs, you can get up here to attack, right? Like a sniper tank here, doing some pretty good damage, throwing out mines, displacing the roaches so that the siege tanks can shell on the roaches and the ravagers, stuff like that. So just keeping these Reapers alive can hold a lot of value. Not all the time, but a lot of times it can hold a lot of value throughout the course of the game. So as you can see, we both have our third bases. I mean, my teammate is mining from his third. My third is up and going. I'm going to float it over to the third base. And so this Reaper into mech composition, if it's played like this, it can be incredibly powerful. Now, also bear in mind that Terran is by far the best race on this map. So doing a play like this it's a bit more forgiving than maybe some other maps, right? So here I've got some pretty terrible macro, but I'm catching up. Mainly because my add-ons, the tech labs and the reactors and stuff like that, they take a while to complete. You just bank money at that time. But in this situation, it's fine. I mean, they're so far behind it doesn't really matter. Zerg player doesn't have a third, Terran player doesn't have a third. You're just really incredibly far ahead from this point forward. And so my teammate's pushing across the map here. So this is kind of a point that I always talk about in my live streams. If your teammate is pushing across the map, right? And it doesn't matter what race you're playing, it could be Terran, Protoss, doesn't matter. If your teammate's pushing across the map, what he's doing is he's pulling this player's units to this side of the map, right? So you got to use your peripherals and look at the mini map. And when you see your teammate pushing, frankly, and especially if you have a mech composition, um, this is going to allow you to get your units into a good position, right? Because he's taking his units and putting them on this side of the map to help his teammate with this push, right? So if he does have a third base, I can take this army and I can cancel the third base and I can set up siege tanks and like a place like here or a place like here and even further deny his third base, right? So my point is that it's important to pay attention to the minimap at all times. If you see your opponent, or excuse me, if you see your teammate crossing the map, you want to make sure that you aren't just idling. You're sending your stuff across the map because you could potentially get a third, right? And get a good position to start up some sort of a creeping type of a play. As you can see, that's exactly what I do. And so from here, I mean, I got my fourth base going up. Zerg player doesn't even have a third. He's still on two base. Terran player has his third, but, he has spent so much time throughout the course of this game deflecting the bullshit that we've been throwing at him, all because of this open and the transition into the mech composition. So this style of play that I do in this game, it's very unorthodox. You don't see players doing it. I want to say ever. I personally have never seen somebody open 3 racks and then move into mech. But it's very creative when you see that your teammate is not straight up going into a mech composition after you have opened with a 3 barracks pressure build, right? So from here it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of keep them locked down, prevent them from mining, and then they leave the game, right? So if you guys like the video, hit that thumbs up. If you don't, hit that thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and I do indeed hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you for tuning in, and peace out.